About 19 years ago, Shanks and his crew arrived at a certain island, and there they noticed some unusual movement. It was a pirate raid, and they quickly decided to strike and put an end to it. The pirates causing all the chaos were eliminated. What remained was a large amount of treasure stored in chests. These treasure chests were carried onto Shanks's ship. Once again, they began celebrating, drinking around the largest of all the chests. After all, that enormous chest had to be filled with gold. They built up suspense before opening it. But while the crew was celebrating, Shanks heard a very strange sound coming from inside the chest. It was actually the sound of a child. And when he opened that enormous chest, what a surprise! The chest was a cradle on the inside, lined with cloths, holding a small baby within. Shanks looked at the baby with its two-colored hair and was reminded of his own past. After all, Shanks himself had been found the same way by Roger. The Pirate King had discovered Shanks as a child inside a chest. So, seeing this situation repeat itself, Shanks came to believe it was the work of destiny. Uta was the real treasure. And the real treasure for me is your subscription to the channel and your like. While that little girl was crying, Shanks sang to her, and ever since her infancy, she showed a deep interest in music and stopped crying. From then on, he cared for her as if she were his own daughter. On the baby's clothes, there were also 3 embroidered letters, Uta, which means music, and so the girl was named Uta. Shanks now took full responsibility for the child who had lost her parents so young because of a pirate attack. As the years went by, Uta always showed a great passion for music. She eventually became one of the ones in charge of music on Shanks's ship. She would sing while the crew celebrated and drank. Uta came from a family called Fearland, Land of Fear. She belongs to her own unique race in the One Piece world. We never get to know her parents or anyone from her family. And Uta had probably already consumed her Paramecia-type Akumanami, the Uta Uta no Mi. The exact moment she gained these powers is unknown. But perhaps, for some reason, the baby was given the fruit, which is why her very name ended up matching that of an Akuma no Mi. And the powers and abilities of this fruit go far beyond what most great pirates can even imagine. After all, with this power, just by singing and using her voice, Uta can lift enormous weights or restrain incredibly powerful opponents. With just a single finger, Uta immobilized Sanji and Oven as if they were nothing, and they couldn't even move a muscle afterward. The power of the Uta Uta no Mi allows her to create a separate parallel reality, another world, and send people into it. Once inside her world, Uta can do absolutely anything. She can materialize objects or even bring non-living things to life. Like when she gave life to the Sunny Ship. The rules of her world are set by her alone. Her musical notes are visible, resistant, and powerful. It's not completely clear if Uta infuses Haki into her songs, but I would say she probably does, given the scale of her abilities and their immense power. As Uta grew up, traveling with Shanks and the others, she became stronger and stronger, developing her skills. She always saw Shanks's battles as unnecessary. Yet at the same time, she realized that Shanks didn't attack. He saved people. Soon, she began to dream of a world where no one suffered, where battles no longer existed, a place where everyone could live happily without fighting. And so, she started exploring and perfecting her own Uta Uta world. Shanks had adopted little Uta when he was 20 years old. 7 years later, he decided to clash with the Marines. The goal was to steal a devil fruit that was being escorted by several ships, a maximum security transport. The red-haired pirates fought, and Lucky Roo managed to seize the fruit known as the Gomu Gomu no Mi. After this conflict, Shanks and his crew sailed to Dawn Island, specifically within the Goa Kingdom, in Fuchsia Village, a tiny, quiet town with very few inhabitants. Living there as well was a small boy named Luffy. Even before Uta met Luffy, she had already decided that one day she would create a new world and bring people into it, a world of nothing but music, free of suffering. She named this dream New Genesis, or depending on the translation you've seen, a new era. From the very beginning, Luffy was bold and eager to meet and talk to new people. During the time Shanks and his crew stayed in that region, he and Luffy eventually crossed paths. And soon after, Luffy met Uta. She was 2 years older than him, yet the two shared a very similar level of maturity. In other words, none at all. Uta acted all mature and wise, but deep down, she was just a big baby. The two of them would play around and compete to see who was the best at everything, but in every single contest, Uta always cheated and beat Luffy. In the days that followed, Luffy decided to ask Shanks to join his crew, but he was rejected right away. Seeing that Uta was almost the same age as him, Luffy felt like he had every right to join the crew too. So he kept insisting over and over, making a lot of noise. He was usually interrupted by Uta's songs, which enchanted everyone who listened to them. And Shanks would joke around with Luffy, just to show him how innocent he still was. It hardly seemed like Shanks was already a pirate worth over $1 billion at that time. His ridiculously strong Conqueror's Haki could neutralize even advanced observation Haki and strike fear into the strongest of opponents. Shanks was already able to coat his sword, Griffin with Conqueror's Haki, and unleash attacks powerful enough to shake the great names of the world. But deep down, Shanks just wanted to be a normal person, drink carefree with his friends, and live from one party to the next. That's when Uta decided to ask Luffy why he wanted so badly to be a pirate. And the result of that conversation was that they both shared their dreams with each other. And Uta's dream was exactly the new era, the creation of a new world. Luffy decided to create a symbol to mark that moment when he would become the Pirate King, and Uta would create her new world. That symbol was Shanks' straw hat, but Luffy's drawing ended up looking more like Gaara's gourd. Luffy never really had much talent for drawing, but you might. Don't draw like Luffy. Draw like a pro by clicking the link in the description. After making those vows, Uta and Luffy went their separate ways. That's because Shanks and the others decided to set sail for Elegia Island, an island that had been guarding a massive dormant power for a very long time. On that island, a real demon with Yonkou level, or even greater powers, was sealed away. It was locked inside musical scores called Tot Musica, and only someone with great musical skill could release it. Like, for example, the power of the Uta Uta no Mi. But Shanks and his crew didn't know that, and they ended up taking Uta straight into a tragedy. Uta was thrilled when she arrived at Elegia. After all, it was a musical island. But the demon, deep beneath the island, reacted to Uta's voice and went straight to her. Very old sheets of music, containing the forbidden score, flew toward the girl, and still enchanted by everything around her, she thought Tot Musica was just another fun song. When Uta began to sing Tot Musica, she released the demon, a being so powerful it wiped out almost all life on the island, and gave Shanks' pirates a terrible fight. By the time they finally managed to defeat the monster, the entire island had already been destroyed, with only a few survivors left, like Gordon. Shanks saw that Uta had unknowingly destroyed the whole island, and thought it would be too much for her to find out she had wiped out so many people. He believed Uta would suffer unbearable pain, and carry guilt for the rest of her life. So Shanks asked Gordon to take care of her, and to lie to the girl. Shanks told her that he was the one who destroyed the island, not the Tot Musica that she had released. That way, he spared his daughter from suffering because of it, and took the blame on himself. When Uta woke up and heard that, she was shocked, and she decided that there, on that island, she would rebuild a new world. A world without suffering, and especially without pirates. With a broken heart, Shanks returned to Fuchsia Village, and the whole crew was deeply saddened. Luffy went to meet them at the port, and immediately noticed something was wrong. Hiding his sorrow, Shanks said that Uta had left the crew to become a great star. Meanwhile, still in her childhood, Uta found out that she had been the one to destroy the island, and that on top of that, she had been abandoned by her father in that place. That's when her personality started to change. Since she had never done anything out of malice, she only wanted to sing. And yet her singing had hurt so many people. More and more, Uta became certain that she needed to create her new Genesis. And for that, she would use the full power of her Akuma no Mi in a song called New Genesis. Shanks, completely heartbroken and depressed over what had happened, decided to drown himself in sack. One of those days, Luffy kept insisting on joining the crew, saying his punches were like pistols, and that he was really powerful. But it was nothing but false advertising, and Luffy got frustrated with it, so frustrated that he got hungry. And the thing is, Shanks's crew would never leave that precious and powerful legendary Akuma no Mi sitting around on the ship. The safest place for it was right next to them. So the chest with the Akuma no Mi stayed beside Shanks, meaning he was supposed to protect the fruit at all costs. But the problem was, Shanks had already drunk too much. He had downed so much sake that he didn't even notice when Luffy snuck up to the chest and opened it. When the small, starving Luffy saw that fruit, he pounced on it, scarfing down several bites in no time. There's a legend that Akuma no Mi tastes absolutely awful, but apparently Luffy didn't care about the flavor of that fruit. By the time the drunken Shanks realized it, it was already too late. Luffy had eaten the very fruit he was supposed to be guarding. And that's how Luffy gained the powers of the Hito Hito no Mi Model Nika, the sun god, better known as the Gomu Gomu no Mi. Days went by, but Shanks' sadness never went away, until one day a mountain bandit walked into the bar. He humiliated Shanks and poured a drink on him, but given the state Shanks was in, he didn't fight back. In truth, Shanks didn't even care, as long as they didn't hurt his crewmates. But the mountain bandits, furious, decided to capture Luffy when he confronted them. They wanted revenge because Shanks, in his grief, had drunk up all the sake in the place. And so Shanks chose to act, saving Luffy. But when he dove into the sea to rescue the small Luffy, Shanks lost one of his arms to a relatively weak Sea King. There's a rule when it comes to using haki. Haki is one's will to live, the sheer force of a person's spirit. A person who is deeply sad or depressed can't use haki because they lack the very drive that summons it, which comes straight from the soul. And it was because of the grief Shanks carried that he lost his arm to the Sea King. And right after, he intimidated the Sea King by unleashing just a small fraction of his haki. That moment showed how negative feelings can weaken anyone. Without his daughter and without an arm, Shanks decided to leave. He placed his straw hat on Luffy's head, telling him to return it someday when he became a great pirate. Shanks expanded his territory and rose to worldwide fame, eventually taking the title of Yonkou. At one point, Shanks realized the danger Blackbeard posed to the world and personally went to Whitebeard's ship to warn him. Not long after, the Paramount War at Marineford broke out to rescue Ace, and Shanks made another move, this time stopping Kaido in the middle of the ocean, preventing him from joining the war. Soon after, he and his crew arrived at Marineford and brought the war to an end. Meanwhile, Uta was perfecting her music and powers, determined to one day make her dream come true, until she stumbled upon Tot Musica once again, and knowing the extent of its power, she decided to keep it in case she ever needed it. Uta truly believed she was now strong enough to control the demon's full power, and so she kept Tot Musica as a secret weapon. The sea had carried transmission Den Den Mushi that were able to send sound across the entire world. And they had probably fallen from some ship that had sunk near her island. That's how Uta began transmitting her songs to the whole world, building a massive legion of fans. Beyond her great talent, her Akuma no Mi also helped her grow more and more successful, until Uta finally decided to hold a live concert. For the very first time, the world-famous Uta would perform live. And her plan was to sing her song, New Genesis, for everyone, and bring them into her own private world. A world where they would live happily ever after. And so she did. During her concert, she abducted the entire audience. While people's minds were trapped inside the imaginary world, their bodies in the real world were left under Uta's control. She could use them as a zombie-like army that would blindly obey her orders. Under Uta's control, they would never know what had happened. That's how the great concert began, and the ones who decided to go see this famous singer were none other than Luffy and his crew. Luffy didn't connect the dots that this Uta was his Uta, since he was too busy eating. When they arrived at the concert, Luffy went straight to greet her. And right away, Uta ordered him to stop being a pirate and live with her forever in her world of illusions. Other pirates like Law, Big Mom, Katakuri, and Oven also showed up at the scene. The Marines were alerted, and a massive buster call was launched. Dozens of Marine ships were ready to wipe out the island and its inhabitants, all to make sure Tot Musica would never be unleashed again. But when Uta found herself cornered, she decided to release Tot Musica. And while Luffy's crew was trapped in her imaginary world, Shanks and his crew arrived in the real one. That's when a new kind of connection happened. Through observation haki, Shanks spoke to Luffy and Yasopp spoke to his son, Usopp. Through this haki link, they coordinated their attacks on specific points of the demon, while at the same time Shanks' crew defended the people and the island from the Marines, who were there to destroy everything. Luffy and Shanks then struck together in their final assault. Luffy attacked Tot Musica inside Uta's imaginary world, while Shanks struck it in the real world. And that's how the mighty demon Tot Musica was finally defeated. In that moment, when Luffy pushed his limits and used every ounce of power he had inside Uta's world, he awakened his Gear 5 form. This happened before Wano, which means we can understand that the very first time Luffy reached Gear 5 was inside Uta's imaginary world. By then, Uta was already deeply sad and full of regret, because the very people she wanted to save were being gunned down by the Marines. And the pirates she hated so much were the ones actually protecting the people she wanted to keep safe. On top of everything, she couldn't control the overwhelming power of the demon, which ended up acting on its own. And just like that, all of Uta's plans were ruined. But since her power was the power of music, it's possible that Uta actually helped Luffy in the end. Now, this is just in the realm of theory, but Gear 5 itself is a musical transformation. Luffy's heart beats like drums, creating a rhythm that turns him into something unstoppable. So Gear 5 may have been Uta's gift, a final push that helped him awaken his fruit and reach even greater power. After defeating the demon Tot Musica, Luffy passed out, and his crew carried him back onto their ship. When he woke up, he saw Shanks' ship in the distance, with his crew gathered around Uta, holding what seemed to be a funeral for her.